panelists. Okay, great. Thank you everyone for joining us. So this is our event on an introduction to business schools and MBA programs. So the first half will consist of a panel discussion with our 3 speakers from Stanford and Chicago Booth Business Schools. And the second half will be a talk from 2 people specializing in helping people get admission to universities and business schools and things. So we can kick off with the panel discussion. So kind of 3 parts to this, kind of pre-MBA questions, questions to do with the MBA itself, and then post-MBA opportunities. If you have any questions also that you'd like to ask the panelists, please put them in the chat and I'll try and integrate them into this discussion. So if we begin with kind of just an introduction by each of the panelists, perhaps where you grew up, where you did your undergrad, what did you study, and where you went for business school. So Chris, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Happy to start. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to be speaking through Tal's computer, so her face will show up instead of mine, but I hope that's all right. So the question was kind of where I grew up, what I did for undergrad, and what I did following undergrad. So I was born in London. You wouldn't tell from the accent, but I spent my high school years in Houston, Texas. Did my undergrad at Georgetown, where I studied political economics. Following undergrad, I didn't use my degree so much. My first job right out of undergrad was working on an apple farm in Suffolk, but that was a short-term thing. But at the time, my mom actually got sick, so I moved back to Houston to be closer to her and also help with her business, which so I joined the family real estate firm, worked in residential and commercial real estate sales, and that's actually what I was doing for the past 6 years until I decided to get my MBA. So I kind of fell into my career a little bit, but it was never truly a passion. It was more helping out and more part of the family. That's kind of why I decided to go get my MBA. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'll kick it over to Rachel or Tal.
Yeah, Tal.
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. So I was born and raised in Vietnam. Actually, Chris and me have a lot of different similar career paths. I moved to the US in 2011 for university, went to Providence College. Actually, I did a year abroad as well at London School of Economics. So I studied economics in undergrad, graduated, and then somehow also fell into real estate investments. So I worked at a firm based in San Francisco area for 2.5 years, and then got a real estate tech bug. Just really love working with data and product management, and transitioned into product management roles at a real estate tech company called Homelight, now a Series D company, and was there for 2.5 years. But after that, felt like I was stuck in real estate for too long. So I decided to go back to business school to explore the areas, and we can go into that after that.
Great. And Rachel?
Hey, so I grew up in both Cambridge and Manchester, and I did my undergraduate at Cambridge and I studied philosophy. And then I spent about 10 years living in London, working in the public sector in health, and then went to Stanford for business school.
Nice. And it would also be great to hear a little bit about what sort of stuff you're involved with on campus during your undergrad. So should we sort of stick with that order? Chris, if you start.
Yeah, definitely start with me because it's probably the least impressive resume. To be honest, at undergrad, I was largely involved with kind of intramural sports. I did join the investment club, and I had a minor role in Amnesty International, the Georgetown chapter, my senior year, but largely not super involved. Most of my kind of community service stuff like that came post undergrad. So I got pretty involved in a charity in Houston called the Optimist Club. So I was actually the vice president of the Houston chapter for that. And yeah, that was where I spent a lot of my time outside of real estate and pursuing my hobbies. I'll pass it to Tao.
Yeah, so for me, in undergrad, I'm mostly involved with diversity and inclusion initiatives in school. Context is I went to a Catholic school. I'm not Catholic myself, and the student body wasn't super diverse at the school that I went to. And so part of the reasons that I was getting involved a lot in diversity and inclusion initiatives is because my friend and I recognized that we need a lot of work in that areas. And so I involved mostly in student organizations to build programs, bring on speakers, doing training, like safe space training for the rest of the school, to raise awareness of, LGBT communities, and the fact that we need to broaden out, views and understandings of other people from other backgrounds. So that's mostly of my time in undergrad.
So I ended up kind of in student politics, but by accident. I studied philosophy. And sorry, I'm having some issues with my connection. I studied philosophy and I wanted us to be able to have a garden party because lots of other faculties organize garden parties for students. And the only way I could do that was to get elected to the faculty board. So I was elected to faculty board, and then things spiraled out of control. I ended up doing more of that, and I ended up on the CUSO exec, so the executive committee of the student union, where I was a faculty liaison officer. So accidentally in student politics.
Amazing. And what did you guys do like between graduating and doing your MBA in terms of career?
Yeah, so like I said, I was in real estate, commercial and residential sales. So what you guys would call an estate agent. But yeah, I did that for 7 years, built my own portfolio of clients, shifted more to commercial as I kind of progressed in my career. Residential's a little repetitive and boring. Commercial actually offered some more diverse kind of experiences. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Pretty unconventional background for business school. Most people, in my experience, have come from a background in consulting or banking or one of those things. But I mean, that's not to say that the only type of student here, as I'm evidence of. There are a wide range of backgrounds as well, but those are just the more dominant ones.
Yeah, I was, like I mentioned too, I worked in real estate investments, kind of fell into the job. I like investing and I like real estate. And so I thought that real estate investing would be a good fit for, an economics undergrad or graduate. So I worked in finance and transactions, helping buying and operating multifamily housing in the US, and somewhat fell into a data analyst role because someone in my company left, and they kind of left a role unfilled. And so I decided to teach myself how to code with Python and SQL, and took over that role and just fell in love with data and technology in general. And so make a transition into real estate tech at this like tiny real estate tech company in San Francisco. At the time was like Series B, when they're about 70 people, and grew their data analytics department, and then transitioned into a growth product manager and build out the growth and product organizations with the chief product officer at the time as well. And by the time I left, we're about, I think now 500 and onwards to like 1,000 people at the end of this year. So it's really exciting to see that growth. But yeah, I really love technology and would love to come back to technology at some point in the future too.
So I also have an unconventional background for business school. Straight out of university, I applied to do a management training scheme, and I knew I wanted to work in the public sector. So I did a fast track management training scheme that was in local government. and I ended up working between local government and local government and the NHS, designing health and social care services and operating them. And then I ended up doing some advisory work for central government, so more around policy. And then I joined the boards of a couple of non-executive, I had non-executive roles on a bunch of boards, and the boards were either sector improvement agencies in social care or like large social care providers in the UK. And then just before business school, I kind of accidentally started a company. So I was curious about whether we could I was interested in designing physical health products rather than just health services. And yeah, that's my background.
Amazing. So why did each of you choose to do an MBA, especially given that you're from slightly unconventional backgrounds? And how did you like prepare for that, given that you maybe didn't get as much support from your company as if you did consulting, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to, like I said, real estate was never really a true passion of mine. I wanted to explore more opportunities that were out there, and it's hard to jump from being an estate agent straight into consulting. So business school definitely seemed like a natural fit. Actually, during the process, I mean, it was largely independent, as you say. I wasn't receiving any support from my company or anything like that. So I reached out to kind of my network and people who I went to undergrad with and people who, you know, were friends of the family, to speak to quite a few consultants, basically on their day-to-day role. And then a lot of them had also gone through the MBA process. So I kind of asked them about that. Yeah, and then from there, I started prepping for the GMAT. I did take one of those, the Kaplan kind of GMAT prep class. And actually, because I came from such an unconventional background, I didn't know really where I should target. I know I wanted to be kind of towards the top end, but I wasn't sure where I should target until I ended up taking the GMAT, doing really well on that, and decided, you know, I should really shoot for the best schools. So that was kind of how I went about the process. I also should mention I had a really great mentor who ran a nonprofit for getting women from Iran into US medical schools. So she didn't have necessarily a background in like the MBA application process, but she had a lot of information about the kind of application process in general. And she did like mock interviews with me and stuff like that. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, I think I was, you know, in real estate for a long time, and I still really interested in real estate, but felt like I need to broaden my industry exposure a lot more. And also if it's feeling like if I want to continue to grow in my career, I would need a lot more training in finance, marketing, leadership. And so business school is just a really good way to do that. And you know, intentionally spending 2 years to invest in yourself and your learning. And I really miss that, you know, working full time. And so business school was definitely something that top of mind for me for a very long time. It just felt like after 5 years, it was a great, you know, time to go back to school. You know, you have enough work experience to make the experience very worthwhile. The investment, you can like realize more ROI from that investment. And actually, like there's more people now in tech that come from business school. And so for me, like the company I'm working at, both the CEO and my mentor is a VP of product, came from Stanford GSB actually, and then other executives also went to business school. And so I got a lot of actually like great information about where, like which program to target. And my kind of interest is very broad. So it's anywhere from tech to consulting to venture capital. And so I was kind of pick a school that could, you know, position me well for any of those career trajectories. And Booth was one of those. So yeah.
My trajectory makes more sense kind of after the fact. So I kind of reached a point in my career where I wasn't really happy with where it would go if I continued. So I didn't want to manage a hospital or be chief executive of a local authority or something like that. So I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do. And when I applied to business school, to be frank, I thought it would be 2 years on my CV, which would look acceptable and I could party, and it would give me 2 extra years to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. But things didn't quite happen like that. So I think I mentioned that I had accidentally started this company. And that was probably about 9 months before business school, before I started business school. And it became clear at that point that there was just a lot that I needed to learn about how to start a company, and that I hadn't learned in my degree, and I also hadn't learned in my professional career. And so that just really focused my trajectory, and yeah.
Great. Yeah, so now we can sort of move on to your MBA itself. It would be great to hear what sort of things you got involved with on campus, and like how you made the most of your time at business school.
Absolutely. So like I said, I kind of came in targeting consulting. That's not the story of how I sold them when I applied for business school. One of the things that you do when you're doing the application process is come up with a narrative that kind of makes sense for your career trajectory. So I actually told them I was going to go into sustainable development. Yeah, a little Machiavellian, I mean, I suppose. But that being said, I knew the transition into consulting would be difficult from my past experience. So I focused a lot on clubs that were geared around that. So one of the things, and how I met Tal, was we were actually in the BS, like real world practical experience with a Chicago startup, doing a consulting project for them. We did end up winning that competition, which resulted in, I think, a pizza party or something like that. So all rewarded with our time. And then just like business school is just super social. So there's like a lot of kind of events focused around drinking sometimes, a lot of the times, and getting together. So some of the other things we've done, went to Columbia. I did a Columbia trip with all of my classmates this past summer. Yeah, just involved with many things. I thought more responsible things to talk about.
I'm not sure about responsible, but yeah, so like Chris mentioned, we did a consulting project together to help a client here. And so the reason that I choose to recruit for consulting was because I felt like my career, private business schools, involve a lot of small businesses. And so building business from the ground up, being very tactical, being really scrappy, do whatever it takes to grow a company. And I feel like I kind of knew how to do that, but I didn't really know how to do like business the right way, or learn best practices. And I felt like consulting would give you really good training for that. They really trying to equip you with, the knowledge that you can bring to whatever jobs you want to do next. And so that's kind of what I was recruiting for. And so now, after I've done the internship, I'm actually helping out with people who are recruiting for this year. So doing mock interview, coffee chats, just like telling them about my experience and kind of helping them form a decision of like what firm to recruit for, what offices to recruit for, and why consulting in the first place. And beside that, like I mentioned, I'm interested in venture capital as well. So trying to do an internship during the year with the firms, ironically in real estate tech space too, because that's kind of where my domain expertise is, but learning new things and really enjoying it so far. But other than that, I think it's like hang out with friends, getting to know people. I think the biggest part about probably one of the most important things about going to business school is to build your network and really get to know other people outside of, the conventional original places you started. And so trying to do a really good job of that and expanding my network and getting to know people who, not recruit for consulting or do something very, unconventional, a non-traditional path, what we call it here. because they are, you learn as much from your classmate as you would do in a classroom, or even more.
So in terms of classes, I was really focused. I basically took all the classes on entrepreneurship, the US health system, and social impact that were offered. And because I had my company operating at the time, I also selected as many experiential classes as I could so that I could directly apply things to work. I also spent or invested a reasonable amount of time in trying to meet people outside of business school, so alumni or through faculty, and really make use of the fact that I was a Stanford student. And then the last thing, I guess, other people have mentioned it. So one of the most valuable things about business school is that you get this incredible network. And so whether that's spending time having coffee with people, going away for a skiing weekend, it doesn't really matter. It's just the time you spend with people, you just develop these incredible connections. And there's some learning that took place, I guess, at the time. I got to see the world through an incredibly diverse set of eyes, which was incredibly interesting because you have people from really every career you can imagine. And in addition to that, that's what's really valuable now. It's that network. It's, someone in every major city in the world. And when you have something, a ridiculous question that no one could possibly know the answer to, your network is the first place you turn.
Yeah, Rachel raises an incredible point, which is like the brand of these MBA programs is super valuable, and having that kind of student at booth, student at GSB behind your name like carries so much weight. One other thing I did while I was here was SNVC, which is the Social New Venture Challenge. So it was like the nascent stages of a business and building that up with my partner. And you'd be amazed how many people in like really high places were willing to speak with us, answer questions about our business and where they thought we should go and direct our focus, just because we had that kind of booth name behind us and we're able to put that out there into the world.
Yeah, I suppose that sort of brings me on to the last part. I mean, I think this is probably tailored more towards you, Rachel, given that Chris and Tao haven't yet graduated, but like obviously you speak about this network. How specifically do you think that your Stanford network has helped you post-MBA?
It's really hard to know where to start because it's incredibly diverse.
Okay.
So I'm going to give a range of answers. So my dog got bitten by a rattlesnake in Death Valley, so Nevada, and I was desperately looking for a vet. And also to find out what to do if you have a dog bitten by a snake bite. And who did I turn to? I turned to my WhatsApp group, and sure enough, at 7 o'clock it was actually the morning, the 4th of July, I got a lot of people who had connections in Nevada or know about snake bites. So there's the ridiculous. Traveling again pre-COVID, you literally do know people in every single city in the world. And that's really lovely to be able to, wherever you travel, have local friends. In terms of work more specifically, I have a WhatsApp group of people who are in New York. I have a WhatsApp group of people from my class who are in San Francisco. We have an email blast as well. And I see people from my class probably most days, so just socially. And if you need an accountant for your business, if you need to understand, need to find someone who works in Medicare buying preventative interventions, just whatever ridiculous work question kind of comes up, you have a group of people that you can throw it out to, and chances are either they'll know the answer to that, or better yet, they'll put you in touch with someone that does. So it's, and I just really can't stress again. So Stanford, it's 400 people, something like that in each class. You meet people the year below you, you meet people the year above you. So that's giving a huge network, and they have every single career you could possibly imagine, and will have be in different stages of startup, or I'm doing a startup, so that's been really relevant to me. And then the last thing I'll say, it's also the alumni network. So I've had alumni who have met with me for 2 hours on a Saturday to provide advice if I'm experiencing a particular challenge, again, with my company. We also have like women's circles. So in New York, alumni from all years meet every month, and you can get into these women's circles to meet people. It's just, yeah. It's not just something that people say. I think the value is really hard to quantify.
Amazing. And just final question. So Rachel, what have you been up to since your MBA, and how has that your MBA like helped you to get to where you are? So I had a company that I started just before business school, and it was a terrible idea in many ways, or not a terrible idea. It worked and stuff, but it wasn't as great as it could be. So I pivoted in a way that I wouldn't have known how to do and wouldn't have thought of if I hadn't had that MBA experience, something that makes it's basically much more sustainable. So that's number one. Most of my time has been spent, growing my company. And first of all, it's that network of being able to go out to people with whatever problem you're experiencing and getting an answer to that. Second, the other thing, just from a startup perspective, has been access to capital. So at Stanford, I think over the last, in the classes from the last 10 years, there've been something like 65 unicorns. So what that means is you have angels that are willing to invest on terms that no one else is ever going to see, and willing to invest capital, amounts of capital that no one else is really going to see. And I don't think I truly appreciated that, quite how huge an impact that would be. And I just, prior to business school, I did have access to capital, but just nowhere near like what business school has given me. Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much to all three of you for all of this insight. It's been really interesting. So the second part of this session is a little bit of a talk from Yatharth and the others from Rostrum Education on the admissions process to MBAs. So I can now pass over to you guys.
Hi guys, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, all good.
Hi, I'm here from Rostrum. I've also got Gwyn with me and Sanjog with me here, and we help with MBA admissions at top business schools. And Gwyn is the expert that we have here today who helps students in getting to these schools. We've helped people get into top business schools like Stanford, Harvard, Wharton, LBS, Cambridge, Oxford, all of these. So I'll pass it over to Gwyn now, who can talk about the admissions process.
Thanks very much. Just so you know, we've got a lot of information to dump on you all at the moment. I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit of time towards the end to answer any specific questions that you've got. I'm happy to run over, but it depends on your schedule there. Okay, so yes, I specialize getting people into top universities, head coach at Rostrum, and work with people at startups, etc. As we were just hearing about, help them get into places like Y Combinator. Okay, let's start off with the basics, and it's the big three questions that you need to have in your mind are: number one, how will the MBA build on your particular background? How will it build on what you've already done? And you need to have the specifics. You need to be granular. So, what specifically is it about the actual core modules? What is it about the electives? What is it about the cohort? What is it about the program itself, which we'll come back to in a while? But you need to be able to answer, how does it build on what you've already done? Question number two is, how will it, why is now the right time, or then, depending upon when you're applying, why is that time the right time for you? And what is it specifically, and this is absolutely core, and we'll come to it when we talk about the briefing sheet, what is it specifically about the program that adds value for you, that is important to you? Is it a specific professor? Is it a specific series of modules? Is it some of the partnerships they have? Is it the global trips that they organize? Is it some of the competition / project work? Whatever it is, but what is it specifically? Because you're going to need to go into deep detail on this, whether it's on the application form or whether it's in the interviews. It's just or attending the webinars, etc., that we'll come to in a moment. And then thirdly, it's how does this particular program set you up for your future goals? Now, it could be the employment career goals in terms of your ambitions. Clearly, leadership is massively important here, that this needs to be something that is actually, it's intrinsic, it's inherent to what it is that you're doing. But how does it set you up specifically? For this, you need to either know who your specific employers are going to be and which specific roles that you're looking for. And again, we need deep detail. And what is the progression? What is the springboard from entering that firm in that particular role with this qualification, and how that's going to move you forward? Or if we're talking about you heading for your either running the family business and expanding that from national to international, or from regional to national, or if it's about you starting your own company, as we've just heard about previously, and how it's going to help you to scale, how it's going to help you gain that traction, how it's going to get you the support. We just heard about Stanford. Very happy with Stanford. We've got several people at Stanford at the moment on particular programs, the master's programs. I certainly believe that places like Techstars, Y Combinator, etc., do as good a job. But it is massively true that Stanford has a lot of added value, but it's not the only place. And this is why you've got to find the right place for you. In order to do that, you need to be creating the so-called briefing sheets, which is one of the core elements of what we at Rostrum do. So the briefing sheets are for every single place that you're applying, and this is part of our whole exploration process when we get to know you in the early stages, is to find out what your outcomes are, where you're looking to go, what you're looking to do. And from that, we create the briefing sheets. The briefing sheets answer the 3 questions that I've just gone over, but also it's details, deep details on individual professors, deep detail on current research and partnerships that are being done. It's who are the alumni, where have they gone, what is it about the cohort, the makeup of the cohort, how is the selection process, what are they actually looking for in terms of the individuals that you will be able to match, because this is not about a cookie cutter. They're building a matrix, a 3-dimensional matrix of people who will be able to help and support each other, and who will be interlocking both during the program itself, but also into the future. And it's where do you fit into that? I've just got someone onto an Oxford MBA. I can't tell you the nationality, because otherwise it would give it away, because he or she is the only person of that particular nationality to get in. Their background is in finance, and they are massively involved in pro bono work and charity work. But that profile was created, and this is very much what we do. What we're looking to do is take people early on and then go through a build-up, a profile building, and help you from the very earliest stages create the personality, create the profile that is going to be attractive to the world's top institutions. This gets a little bit mundane here, but it still needs to be done. One of the very first things that we do at Rostrum is that we get people to build their competency grid. The competency grid, most of you will know what I mean when I talk about this, but it's like, so for example, communication skills, that's divided into 3 parts: negotiations, breaking complex information down into the simple, dealing with difficult people; integrity, entrepreneurship, going the extra mile for a client, dealing with pressure, time management, innovation. All of these are competencies, and there are at least another 8 more that you need to have stories for. And the question is, what stories have you got, and what stories could you have through getting involved in the clubs, societies, getting involved through your work experience? How are you actively engaged in your work that is not just doing the job? What are you doing that is extra? And what are you also doing outside of your work? But I don't have the time. Yeah, you do, because other people do. And if you want to get into the world's top institutions, you need to be demonstrating that you have the capacity to take on a huge workload that covers social impact, business impact, and personal development. And that's what we look at. Because that's what they are looking at. You need to be able to excel in these particular areas. But the question is, where do you get all of this information? Again, the amount of time that people spend is completely insufficient on the preparation for the major webinars and events that the early stage process involves. There are webinars, there are events, your careers department, your societies, university will guide you, they will nudge you about where to go, but you cannot just turn up. You actually have to have done the preparation in advance, which means, yes, you'll have done data mining on all of the stuff that I've already mentioned, and you'll be prepared to ask particular questions, but you'll also be listening to what it is that the other people say. You'll be making a note of the names of the position and the thoughts and the viewpoints of the main speakers, and you're making a record of all of that, and all of that is then recycled and goes into your actual applications. Yes, it includes name dropping as well and short specific quotes, and then it goes forward into the interviews that you're going to be having, whether it's with alumni or whether it's a recorded interview, which we'll come to shortly. By the way, though, you know, when you're in employment, I'm hoping that you all keep job diaries. I mean, we've been banging on about this at Rostrum since day one. Wherever you are, whether it's you're on a short internship or if you're fully employed, you need to be keeping a jobs diary. Jobs diary means what are the particular events, skills that you have developed on any particular week, any particular month. Who have you met? What have been the projects? What have been the angles? Obviously, you're going to respect confidentiality, but you need to be able to have examples, instances when you're demonstrating this narrative arc that is your career, that is your shift from now through to the future on the program and through to your future in your career and into your leadership potential. And it's massively important that you keep this particular diary. By the way, whilst at university and also in employment, but whilst you're at university, this is one of the first things that we tell our students who are just going into university. You need to have the professors on site. You need to choose the 1, 2, 3, no, not one, that's a lie. The 2 or 3 professors that you want to have on site who are going to be able to fully back you for the references that you're going to be asking them to submit further on down the road, that you know that you're going to get, that will get particularly good grades, but you're talking to them, you're building that relationship, you're established, they know who you are, they know the name, they know that you have gone the extra mile, because then when you're pushing them to get these references not only in on time, but to be able to meet specific criteria, which criteria? The ones that are on your briefing sheet, then that's what actually works, okay? But you need to have built those particular relationships. The same thing equally applies with the from an employment perspective. From the very beginning, you need to target the people, whether it's because of their reputation in your particular sector, whether it's their previous experience in other sectors that are part of the area that you're looking to go into, and or their knowledge, that they are going to write you a super, super good reference. Just moving on to one of the areas where people fail the most, and this is where there's an overlap. There are 2 areas where we spend most of a big chunk of our work is on the video interviews that you have to do for many of these particular programs, and or even worse if you're doing it in person. Most people do not spend anywhere near enough time on prepping out, that being able to talk through those big 3 questions that I mentioned back at the beginning, being able to talk about the specific competencies that I mentioned on the competency grid, and critically being able to talk about current events, current affairs, etc. A lot of, I don't know if you can see, I mean, I'm talking to you guys, but I got Bloomberg on in the background. I have Bloomberg and what news that's going on in the financial markets and in the business world pretty much 18 hours a day, just to track what it is that's going on. You need to be up to speed with who are the key market sector that you're looking to move into. You need to be able to think about who are the key people, who are the key leaders, what is their particular philosophy, what are the changes that have been made, what are the emergent trends. You need to have a deep understanding. This is all part of your preparation that needs to be done incredibly, incredibly early. You know, the very fact that you're here, the very fact that you're listening means that you're ridiculously smart. In that case, you should also know your own personal network and be cultivating that network. I'm assuming that you all have LinkedIn Premium. But how much have you actually laid out your network? People that you knew from school, the people you knew from your different sports, the people you know from university, the people you know from the pro bono or the charity or the community work that you do. How much have you laid that out? Because in the future, what you need to do is not just contact those people, because that's way, way, way too easy. What you're doing is asking those people to introduce you to 2 or 3 other people who they think you might be able to learn from, and who will give you guidance, and who might themselves have contacts at particular boards, at particular universities, through certain committees. This is a game. All of this is a game, and it's about utilizing the knowledge that you already have, maximizing the opportunities that you have where in your current university or in the work that you're doing, and then massaging that into a particular shape that works incredibly well. As we move on from there, the understanding of what you are going to give to that particular university is critical. The identification of not just of the alumni network, but of the very specific societies, of the very specific initiatives that have taken place over the last 3 to 5 years, and how, again, this is part of your networking, that you should have reached out to these people very early on and say, you're thinking of coming there, or you're going to be applying there. Would it be possible to have a 5, 10 minute, 15-minute chat with them? And they will. In the same way, when you're not going to turn down people in the future who come to you and ask for help. In the same way, these people won't, because they know that is the way that the whole thing works. Okay, cool. We have approximately 100 plus questions that have come up regularly on interviews for both US, UK, and European programs. There is a huge amount of overlap. 100 questions might seem a lot. It isn't really. Many of them are interconnected, and the stories and the thought patterns and the ideas that go into them are very similar. The key, though, is practicing them and rehearsing them. You can go and search them online. If you dig deep, you can. That's absolutely fine. But again, you need to chat to your friends. I would be building a network of building a support group of 5 to 6 people that you're going to collaborate with throughout this whole process. I would be thinking of gaining a diverse group, please, whether that's gender, sexuality, geographies, whatever, because the more perspectives that you get, the more views that you get, the better that actually is in terms of moving forward. Okay, a lot of people ask me whether or not it's better to get internships at, I don't know, MBB, McKinsey, Bain, wherever, whether it's bulge brackets, global corporates, tech giants, whatever, or whether it's actually better to get involved with startups and to have those sort of experiences. It will depend upon your goals, your specific outcomes, and you need to work backwards from there. I do think that getting some sort of startup experience under your belt, either just to get it out of the system, or in order to understand the very holistic and agile type of thinking that takes place within startups, is a good thing to do. But equally, the rigor of the internship programs and the work involved with global corporates or with large-scale companies is something that is useful, as long as you make sure that you make a record on all of this. Okay, there you go. That is 18 minutes, 2 minutes under what I wanted to do. Back to the host or hostess or whoever it is that happens to be there. You got 12 minutes for the students to and for the members to ask very specific questions on anything that more detail on anything I've mentioned, or anything that I might have missed, please.
Great, thank you very much for that. That was super interesting. Please put your questions in the chat. I actually have a question for you, Gwyn. Do you have any sort of advice or input on who should be applying for deferred admissions programs in your final year at university?
Okay, again, it always comes back to and that's a great question. what is it that you want to do in both in the short term and the medium term. This is all about making a rational choice regarding outcomes. The Rostrum marketing. At Rostrum, what we do is that it's about having a solid Q&A session with you. If you feel you want to have that experience under your belt, that you want to learn different skills, that you're not quite ready. A lot of it is about timing and about individual character. The way that people have developed at university is very different based on the culture that they come from, their own personal background, the speed with which they adapted to university life and engagement with university life. I mean, I have a lot of people who at undergrad did not get that actively involved because they knew nothing when they arrived about this whole process and what's involved with it. But then once they got on to masters or perhaps entering third year, the penny dropped. Oh, you're still there because your picture's frozen. You're still there?
Yes, I am.
Still there?
Yes.
Not sure. Okay. And okay. It's just that the image is frozen. That's all. I was worried. So this is all, and just in, and this is why the question is excellent. In exactly the same way that the admissions team for these programs, they look at every individual profile and what it is that people say, I've got to give you the forbidden word list, because otherwise I'll be really remiss. This is why it's so good that they will take your calls. They will have a conversation with you to talk about the program. They will look at what it is that you choose to share with them. The deferred programs are absolutely based on specific outcomes, and it's not deferred programs because I think it's too generalistic. It has apologies. I think it's deferred programs at specific institutions. This is incredibly niche. We're getting into an area where you're only going to be applying to a small number of places. Normally, a university, and even at masters, I'm a gunshot guy. I think we apply to the wide range and we can work it, but not on these programs. This needs to be much more tailored and specific. Can I just very quickly, because I missed it when I ran through the presentation, I know that none of you would ever do this, okay? But in your written applications, please, forbidden vocabulary. I'll explain why, but if you just follow this, then you'll give yourself an extra 10% chance, right? These words should never, ever be used in any part of your written application. And obviously in the written application, they give you a word count of 300 words or 500 words. You come in at 300 or 299 or 500 or 499 because it's a drafting exercise. You never use the word also. You never use not only, but also. You never begin sentences with in addition, additionally, moreover, or anything like that. You don't say what I was able to, you bin it, you just say what you did. You don't say I had to, you just bin it and say what you did. You don't say I was lucky enough to, I was fortunate enough to, because that usually means that your family organized it. Get rid of it. You don't say anything related to fire. Anything related to fire is out. This sparked my interest. It ignited my passion. It fueled my whatever, is out, all right? It's just gone. In order to, why are you going to use 3 words when you could just say 2? As well as becomes and, okay? There's a whole range of vocabulary that sharpens their perception of you. I had, subject and verb. It's horrible, it's grim. Use gerunds, having, doing, going. Psychologically, they're just much more dynamic. No, you lot are all ridiculously smart. No repetition of any words or words with the same root in any particular sentence or any particular paragraph. Okay, next question if you've got some.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, how long before applying should we start preparing? And I guess this tailors both towards the grid that you mentioned and also GMAT and things. Okay,
cool. And thank you for the word drop there. As soon as possible, okay? Long-term thinkers win. The earlier that people get on a program in order to prepare for this, the easier it is and the higher our success rate, okay? People join really early on, we can smash it because we can control and balance what it is that you apply for, which committees you join, how you become president of this, how you do this or this, that, or the other with your pro bono or your charity work, which particular online courses you take to supplement your particular degree or master's or the current work that you're doing at the moment. With regards to GMAT, GRE, everybody underestimates it. Everybody underestimates how long it's going to take. You start how early? You start as early as possible, as soon as you're certain that this is what you actually want to do. Oh, but I can do it in 6 months. I can do it in 9 months. I can do. Yeah, right. But why would you? If you can start earlier, and you've got to do your benchmark test, you see where you are, you see the scores, you're going to run on your briefing sheet, you will have the percentiles, the medians are all your target institutions, you know what it is that you need to go to, you identify the areas that you can smash in GMAT, GRE, and then you take those out, and then you look at the bits that you need to improve, and then how are you going to do it? Are you going to grind your way through the books? Are you going to get in the individual coaches? Which coaches are you going to get? What's going to be on the quant, what's going to be on the verbal, blah, 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 blah. This is all a process. This is problem solving. This is the same as management consultancy. Actually, from my perspective, it's the same as investing, okay? We break everything down into tiny little bits. What are the catalysts? What are the drivers? What are the bits that we need to understand more of? Answer as early as possible. You just started at university, probably none of you out there, but if you have, get on board now. Otherwise, the rest of you, jump on the bus.
Great, and that brings us on to the second question, which is, if there was one thing that I must do during my undergraduate period to work towards an MBA, what do you think that should be?
Sleep less. Basically, the human body works in 1.5-hour cycles. Scientists out there will know this. The whole circadian rhythm, yada yada, 1.5-hour cycles. I do either 4.5 or 6 hours sleep as my standard, depending on the day and what's going on and the time of year that we're at. You lot should be able to do the same. When I was head trader of a bank, 3 was my number. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I burned out a little bit at the weekend, but yeah, that's another story, another place. The less sleep, people sleep too much. Yeah, I know. Go read the research, Gwyn. Yeah, Gwyn, you got to sleep more, your brain function, whatever. Yeah, right. No, you're young, you can get over it. You need to have multiplicity of experiences. You need to be involved on committees. You need to be running societies. You need to be doing those online courses. If you have not got highly advanced Excel by now, what you've been doing all your life. If you haven't got a basic understanding of what Python or SQL or Tableau is all about, what? All right. And then it's the hard and the soft skills together that you need to be able to demonstrate. How do you feel about getting up in front of, I don't know, let's just say, keep it simple, getting in front of a lecture theatre of 150 students and doing a 4-minute shout out? How do you feel about that? How are you going to make eye contact with them? How are you going to breathe? Where are you going to be standing? How are you going to manage the space on the stage? What is it that you're going to do? Or at the top of the stairs? What is it that you're going to do? How are you going to manage that? That is experiential. You can talk about it all you want. You can read books on it, but it's not the same as actually going and doing it. Feel the fear, do it anyway. Erica Young, good book. But anyway, that's what I recommend. Experiences. Maximize your hard and soft skill experiences during undergrad.
Great. I think that's sort of it from the audience, unless anyone has anything else. I have one more question. So do you think it's sufficient to, I think like previously a lot of people just did a few years in consulting or banking and then went into MBA, but is that still okay? Or do you need to have something extraordinary and extra to get into the top business schools?
Cool. These are I'm not surprised you had another question. I was kind of expecting it, but that's fine. It's not fine. It's super. The one does not preclude the other. If you're at McKinsey, you've got a specific type of thinking. You'll have an eclectic lifestyle anyway. If you get into Goldman, they only take divergent thinkers anyway. Okay, end of story. Therefore, you'll be doing multiple other things. Doing something extraordinary. People climbing the second highest mountain in, I don't know, Kazakhstan, in the Caucasus or whatever. Yes, I know those people. People who are taking part in particular boat races, skiing, whatever. You can create your own thing. It's wrapped around you. but doing a decent job. Okay, one of my guys got an offer from Stanford recently, and what was he? He was in Luxembourg or in Belgium, can't remember. Whatever. For one of the big places. But at the same time, he's a very serious tennis player, massively serious tennis player, but also does coaching at a high level for football teams, youth football teams. Okay, you have to manage your diary. You have to make that sort of space. And then if you can throw in that you have read some of the latest books that have come out on, doesn't have to be on business theory, much better if it's something on, I don't know, let's say culture in Western Russia in the 18th century through the lens of art. I don't know, whatever, who cares? Some sort of, one of my guys in Germany, his hobby, restoring antique German furniture, and he can talk about the legs on chairs forever. Okay, this sort of thing is stuff that you do because you're people who are interested in different things, and that's what makes you stand out.
Great, and there's one more question in the chat. So they've said, if possible, could you specifically advise an MBA aspirant undergrad from St Andrews? So do you have any St Andrews specific advice?
The experience that you've had at St Andrews, both in terms of the, particularly mainly in terms of the community, the international nature of the community is incredibly important. The experience that you've gone through in such I love the location. I love it. It's great. And I haven't been up there for a while, for over 3 years now. But anyway, I think that adds value. What have you learned from the college system, from your colleges? What have you learned from the location? What have you learned from your peers? What have you learned from some of the very specific clubs and societies there? It's about encapsulating, synthesizing that information. I think that it's I think it's very special. I mean, I have a couple of people who were, oops, are we still there? We disappeared. I have a number of St Andrews clients who've gone on to some of the largest consultancies, and what they spoke about was the ambience and, most importantly, the people at St Andrews. So the answer to your question is take your experience and synthesize it. Have you disappeared on me? Are you still there? I've got a blank screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay,
there you go.
Great. Yeah, I think that's sort of it from the audience and from me. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but otherwise, thank you very much.
The only thing I have, obviously the only thing I have to add is I love working with top talent. St Andrews has top talent. I know that from past experience. If you're interested in more information, working with Rostrum, which would implicitly mean working directly with me, I don't take lazy people. I'm not interested. I don't take everybody who applies. Rostrum doesn't take everybody who applies. What we're interested in, people who are motivated, people who want to get ahead, and also people who are long-term thinkers, because this is all about building networks in the future, not only for us, but for you. And we have bloody good network. We have good networks, sorry. Okay, all right, there you go. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Excellent. All the best now. Ciao.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Pleasure, by the way. Bye.